Bitcoin on the weekly chart getting exciting. Bitcoin in general, for a lot of people out there, getting very exciting. I want to break down not only this weekly chart, but I want to dig into the daily and talk about what is actually just happening. Put aside all of the headlines, what's happening from a technical analysis perspective. Cardano, a little bit different of a picture on the weekly. Kind of looks like it's having some trouble. It's struggling a little. I want to dig into this chart, specifically the daily. Something happening on the daily in terms of a certain indicator, which is brought to you today by our sponsor, Lux Algo. Shout out to our sponsor. We're going to get to that indicator in the Cardano portion of this video. So let's just start with Bitcoin though and talk about what is happening with Bitcoin. First thing just to note on Bitcoin, it was not long ago we were kind of just trending below these very key moving averages. We're talking about the 200-week moving average and the 20-week moving average. And you can just see this was just kind of earlier in June, just falling below. Bitcoin bounced. Bitcoin bounced off of very key daily areas that we're going to look at on the daily chart. And right now getting some nice separation with 5 days still left on this weekly candle. That's the first thing I just want to point out as we start digging into, well, what's going on here? I don't know if you've been watching my YouTube videos lately, everybody, but I've been really enjoying breaking down all of these headlines, just all of these news events that are coming in terms of crypto. Most recently, Bitcoin has had some really kind of just bullish narratives floating around in these headlines, whether it's the SEC attacking certain altcoins that gives some leverage to the Bitcoin play, whether it's all these BTC ETFs that are being applied for, that gives a spotlight to Bitcoin, right? So all of these things playing into kind of the general sentiment, the tone on these charts. But I want to be very clear about something. And this is always the case, whether it's a fear headline, a bullish headline, no matter what year we are in or what part of the charts we are on. I want to be really clear. This move, it's just a commonplace move. That the headlines, they make it exciting. If you go on crypto Twitter, Bitcoin, especially kind of Bitcoin maximalists, really excited. I mean, it's almost like if you just go on Bitcoin Twitter, it's almost like Bitcoin's breaking all-time high right now because of this move paired with all of the ETF stuff that's happening. But when I look at the chart and I separate myself from headlines, myself from any emotion, it's kind of like, okay, I mean, that's like just the most common Bitcoin move to the upside right now. We haven't even broken kind of this swing high from April yet, right? We just had a nice bullish move back here in March. And even back then, from an emotional perspective, sentiment perspective, you notice on crypto Twitter, people are going crazy. There's no doubt there's certain bullish things happening, right? Hence my title of this video. These weekly moving averages is a big deal for Bitcoin. But I want to be clear, this move that's happening right now is a move we talked about 8 days ago in this video. Check it out real quick. That's what I'll be watching this week. What happens at this lower trend line? Now to the upside, if markets just go bullish, we'll be talking about a different type of target. The target to the upside, the main target would be the upper trend line. It's around $28,600. $28,600. That was 8 days ago. Now here we are, and Bitcoin has finally made its way there. Did not know we were going to get these bullish headlines for Bitcoin. It could be a trigger that's helping Bitcoin get to this area. But now, for me, I watch and see what happens at this upper trend line area. This is a rising wedge we've been tracking. You can see Bitcoin kind of popped out of it, fell back into it, tested the recent lower trend line, and we've kind of made our way back to the upper end of this rising wedge. What I want to really point out is the fact that Bitcoin in this journey has broken the 50-day and the 20-day moving average. That's a really big deal on this daily chart, something to pay attention to. However, it's also something to pay attention to if Bitcoin retraces to those areas, is there support? There's another angle, another perspective to this Bitcoin daily chart I wanted to take a look at. It's this one. We have also this falling channel. Bitcoin actually just broke through. Target to the upside, 30,600, 30,500. But notice this, and maybe Bitcoin just absolutely just makes a really nice move to that target really fast. But I just want to point out that 50-day moving average that we just discussed that Bitcoin has broken through, very confluent with the upper trend line of this falling channel. So when we have breakouts out of channels and patterns or whatever, I personally am always looking for throwbacks. That's just me. And right now with the 50-day moving average kind of confluent with that area, I'm just going to be continually monitoring on the way up Bitcoin to throw back to, if not just the lower trend line, but the 50-day moving average, right? We always look for a retest of those moving averages, because ultimately what we want to see for a true reversal confirmation is not only the break above, we want to see support above. We want to see higher highs and higher lows above the moving averages as it's kind of trending in that new direction. So that's something I'm going to be watching for Bitcoin. On that other daily chart, I do want to point out, if Bitcoin does make the move to that $30,500 target, and it starts breaking out on this chart above this trend line, what we have in play is around a $40,000 target or so, and that is a target of this rising wedge that we have on the screen here. So this could be a nice move for Bitcoin on the midterm. This could really be a powerful move, and even on the daily, there's room on the RSI, a slower moving momentum oscillator for Bitcoin on the daily chart, and I will be absolutely watching this, whether there's going to be some retracements like that move to the 50-day moving average retest. I will absolutely be watching just kind of this move. If we can get a powerful momentum move for Bitcoin on this daily, that could really play into what it's doing over here on the actual price chart. These are the things I'm watching on for Bitcoin right now, though. Just to sum that up real quick, it's that resistance right around $28,600 or so, $28,700 or so on this chart. I will be watching to see if Bitcoin can make an explosive move through that while it tries to hit its targets right here to the upside out of this falling channel. Cardano on the weekly. So before we get to this indicator, before we discuss what I'm noticing on this chart, I want to point out the weekly. Cardano is in its own little war right now that Bitcoin is not in, and then a lot of crypto is not actually in. They got caught up. ADA has gotten caught up into this SEC thing. So the thing that I really just want to point out on the weekly, besides the obvious, it's kind of looking like it's trying to put in a double bottom. Whether or not that holds or not, we'll track that. But this move, it's such a reminiscent move of the COVID move, COVID swing low. It's just this event out of nowhere. And the interesting dynamic for me as I see this chart is the fact that this time, when COVID happened, it was the whole crypto space, Bitcoin included, was involved in that move. It was affected by that move, the fear. This move is different because it's a very similar event from a charting perspective. It really threw off Cardano's chart. It really did. But the thing is, the entirety of crypto is not so much dealing with this happening, right? Things like Celsius getting ready to start selling their ADA position in July 1st. That's like this floating narrative. It's a negative thing over the coming weeks for Cardano. We can't ignore that. Needless to say, it is what it is. And I truly do think Cardano ADA will get through this. I truly do think that during this process, ADA is just going to be suppressed. I would like to see a breakout sooner than later, but it seems to me that it's just being suppressed right now because of what is going on. Narratives are starting to shift a little already in terms of SEC kind of losing leverage in their stance. The judge is even kind of pointing out their unfairness, so to speak. So we have to continue monitoring that. But let's do this. I want to go to a weekly chart. Lux Algo. I'm going to use just a few of their indicators. And there's one special one I really want to kind of revolve this video around. I want to point out three things. Number one, we have this red is just, and this is a weekly chart, by the way. This red, it's just such a nice view of the bear market, and the blue, such a nice view of the bull market. And it's called the smart trail. It tracks downtrends and uptrends. The support is blue back here, and you can just see it in this bull market. There's support there, and then in a bear scenario, it's resistance. And Cardano actually such a terrible bear market. Cardano well below that red area, but important indicator on the macro. I think that we're going to use a lot because it will be a very important bullish, macro bullish confirmation area once ADA actually can break kind of and turn that trend around. The other thing is this, it's the trend catcher. And this is important actually for the sake of this actual video. This is a weekly, but it becomes important on the daily chart that I'm about to show you. The trend catcher is just used to really detect early trends, right? So red, you can see this red line, that's a bearish trend. Green line, that's kind of this reversal. playing into that whole COVID thing, the similarity I just mentioned, we were turning around for the first time in this bear market. ADA was turning around into a green trend from this trend catcher. And then wasn't COVID. It was SEC attacking ADA, essentially, in the Coinbase case. Look how it turned red. And that's an event that, for me, it's just so similar. And this, even from a charting perspective, the same type of thing happened. You can see ADA out of this bear move on the weekly, turning green here. And then COVID came in and wrecked that for the time being, turned it red again before we got the green, before ADA clawed its way out with the rest of crypto. We're in a very similar type of environment right now. I really think we are. This indicator just really brought that to life for me on this weekly chart. And then lastly, I want to point out this confirmation signal. You can see this red down is a bearish confirmation. That happened because of this huge capitulation event that we just saw with this SEC news. A green, that's a bullish confirmation. When it has a plus sign, that kind of just adds strength to it. I want to just state that is not to say that's a sell signal or a buy signal. These are really just kind of trend type of signals, right? So I just want to point that out. Now let's go to the daily and let's talk about this special indicator. The special indicator for me, it pairs up with what we just talked about, these other indicators, but it's this. You see these little X's? These little X's kind of trigger when there's a trend, right? In this case, a downtrend, it kind of triggers as like an exit indicator, right? So in other words, maybe take profits, and you can just see it triggers to the upside as well, right? There's blue and then there's red. The thing that I noticed on this chart when I was kind of trying to evaluate, well, when do these really hit? And mind you, when we're looking at all these indicators, you can really go back and you can just kind of look and evaluate how consistent were they? How helpful actually were those indicators? And when looking at this specific one, especially as I've been kind of eyeing up this move in general and kind of comparing it to other recent lows that ADA has been in, when I started looking at that, it started to become a really compelling indicator, this exit signal. Because you see how I put an arrow in purple underneath the signal? It's pairing up with one of my favorite momentum oscillators really nicely on the daily chart, and that is this one. This is the MACD. This MACD line, the blue line, getting ready to cross above this red line, the signal line. It's a very bullish move in general for any crypto that we're evaluating. Notice also the signal line, or I'm sorry, the histogram approaching zero, not turning green just yet, but getting there, right? This is all happening right now on the daily chart as ADA struggles. This is something I'm paying attention to now, kind of paying attention even more with the fact that, check this out. If we go back to kind of the last time ADA put in this kind of oversold MACD crossing above the signal line, that was back in March, mid-March 2023. Notice what happened right before that MACD line did that. We had this exit on the Lux Algo indicator. And that was kind of days before. It was also an environment where the momentum was starting to trend back up, right? So you can see that light red right there on March 10th. We got this exit right here on March 11th. So that's one, right? Then we go back and I found this other one. I open up the screen so you see this. It was mid-December 2022. You can just see exits. Now, if we look at the MACD, once again, what's happening? This cross getting ready to happen and this momentum getting ready. So my point being, when we're getting this indicator, it's happening historically. If you go kind of look back, it's happening before the MACD truly makes that bullish cross, before it, even if it's days before it. And then even when we're getting this, you can actually see ADA put in another kind of bottom, in this case, a lower low. So it wasn't a perfect indicator to say exit. But what is so compelling about that to me is the very fact that ADA kind of doing something similar. This indicator triggers, and then ADA just kind of, it didn't really put in a lower low because this wick is just really low. This goes down to like 22 cents. But you can just see it's been trending down, right? So all of this confluence with all of these indicators that I've used anyway, right? Like for instance, the MACD and even the RSI, slower moving momentum oscillator, you see getting ready to exit oversold. The fact that we have this other indicator now to kind of evaluate on ADA as it's kind of reflecting similar environments that it's been in before, I think is very valuable perspective. And the thing that I want to point out, which is, I don't know if you noticed it or not on the screen, it's this. I think this is a very clear picture of the fact that we had this out of nowhere event, because you see this exit and you just never know, but we have this exit indicator and ADA just trading sideways, and you just wonder, would ADA have exited, or not exited, but continued up and trended up with Bitcoin and the rest of markets if this whole fear event didn't come into play? And this is something we'll never know. I really think this is such a similar move to the COVID event from a charting perspective. And all these indicators really do kind of show that to me. One other thing I want to note on this chart, remember, if we go to that weekly chart that we started with, we have this trend catcher. That's this green here, basically detecting early trends. Well, let's look at it on the daily chart, because I just noticed as ADA was crossing above 27 cents, that green just triggered as well. So the reason why I think that is important is because that's the first time it triggered green. Once again, first time since mid-March, once again, referring to this indicator right here that triggered back then as well. So we have this indicator triggering then, triggering now. We have the trend catcher signaling then, just signaling now. And then we have our MACD that we always are using, getting ready to signal. This for me says a lot in terms of ADA and what could potentially be getting ready to happen in terms of resistance to the upside. If ADA is to make a move to the upside, I really won't be getting any type of actual bullish confirmations until ADA is crossing all of these areas, namely the 20-day moving average and then this Fibonacci, this lower high Fibonacci. To give you an idea, that's quite a big move. It's still 18 to 28% away for ADA. But if ADA truly enters an actual uptrend, ADA will likely retest that area. One thing I didn't even just note throughout just talking about all of these kind of moves and these reversals, each time these things happened, you can see ADA did trend up into those moving averages. So these indicators will be very interesting to see. Will they trend up into these moving averages? That is something I will be tracking. Everybody, Lux Algo, kind of delivering some really cool indicators. I'm excited to start using them. I'm excited to have them as a sponsor. They're giving 30% off right now. Use my link if you're tracking charts with me, if you're using indicators, if this is something you're interested in doing as well. There's going to be so many different perspectives. I think we can use this on the macro, on the zoomed out, on the daily, on the zoomed in for these shorter term signals. So hit the link below, use the code that I put down there, get 30% off. And give it a shot if you're interested. Appreciate and shout out to Lux Algo for sponsoring this video. Excited to kind of have you on board. Excited to use these indicators and see how they play out. Everybody, I hope you're doing well out there. Hit the subscribe, hit the like. I will see you in the next video. God bless.